So we all know in September school started, and this year I sadly ditched my art course in favor of computer science, which means I've been learning Python. In fact, I consider myself a Python master now. Okay, I'll admit I'm not the best coder, far from it in fact, but I believe that with some hard work and extra elbow grease, I'll be able to make a lot of stuff soon. I've already made some cool things, too. Yeah. Wait, what was the title of the video again? Oh yeah, I made an infinite math generator in 4 hours using Python. Alright, let me clean up some confusion before we get started. This video will contain nerd info, so if you hate learning about stuff, leave. Another thing I want to clear up is, no, I did not technically have only 4 hours to do this. I finished this in 4 computer science classes, and my classes usually total up to about an hour per class, so I'm just using that as my plot point. Finally, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more silly things I do, suggest subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss a video. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started. I first started by opening a new Python file and then thinking, now what? A question I dwindle on for the next 3 days despite knowing the answer to said thing. After then, on my 4th day, realizing the deadline for the project will be approaching soon, I finally got to work. Obviously, I did get to work after that, and I was already thinking of ways to make this program work. I first started by typing import random. All it does is prep the random number generator for later coding. Then I added my first variable. It was a list of the operations I needed to use for this infinite math generator. I then created a variable that would choose randomly between each operation by typing operation choice equals random.choice brackets operations. The operation choice part is just a variable name and it's interchangeable, but that's what I call it. Once I was finished, I simply printed the operation and each time it was randomized. I did it, and I felt moderately proud. So proud that I completely forgot how much time we had left for talking to my friends and wasted too much class time. Now this is the time I get down to business. I use this day to get the random numbers working. I started by making 2 variables that said num1 equals rand.int brackets 1, 15 and the same thing but number 2. These 2 variables are going to be our 2 numbers inside of the question. Each variable is said to pick a number between 1 and 15 with the operation going to be in the middle. I also made what is called a conversion variable. Basically it's converting a variable type to another. In this case, I'm converting the 2 numbers into a string value, so they may be used in the same sentence as my operation. I then type out question equals input, brackets, num1 underscore a string, space, operation choice, space, num2 underscore s underscore string, which will cause the terminal to ask us the question. What is this number plus or minus or multiplied or divided by the second number? But this is where it goes all downhill for this project. This is the day I finally finished the basis of the infinite math generator. I came back to the computer and then realized something. Pause. Before I explain this next section, let me explain the first different types of variables. First we have strings. Strings are variables that use text and words and letters and cannot be combined with integer or float variables. Remember that for later. Next, we have integer variables, which are your standard whole numbers, as well as the float variables that just numbers with decimals. We also technically have booleans, which are true or false variables. We don't really end up using those in this project. Anyway, now that I got that out of the way, back to the video. I realized something. I can't make the answer variable because the operations is a string and the numbers are integers. Well, blooper, just use the string versions of the numbers. Well, that doesn't work, because those aren't numbers anymore, technically. They're like a toy on display mode. They only serve about half their intended use. In this case, they're a number, but they don't act like one. Instead, they're treating like a word, thus trying to add said word to another word, which is combine the 2 new words to make a sentence or new word. Well, why don't you convert the operation to an integer saying it works with numbers? No, because there is a written form where it has to be a string value. Sadly, I was stumped for a while, but I found a workaround by using multiple if statements that detect what operation was chosen and adds, divides, multiplies, or subtracts the 2 numbers accordingly. I then made an if statement. If question equals answer, print good job, else print wrong. This basically checks if the answer you put into the terminal is correct and prints a word depending on if you got it right or not. I also threw it into a while loop so that it loops indefinitely, and you can type done into the terminal to stop at any time. Now my math generator was done, but it needed a few more final touches. I immediately got to work making a point system. Now, whenever you get a question right, it gives you 10 points and displays your current points. But if you get it wrong, it does the same thing, but takes away 5 points. I also made it display how many answers you got wrong and right, as well as your final score at the end of the game. Now my program was complete, and I was satisfied. I submitted it to my teacher, and realized I still had 2 more days plus an entire weekend to work on it. Mother